Radical collaboration, it's called radical collaboration because it's a radical way of thinking about how to negotiate, how to engage in conversations, and how to build buy-in with people. So that could be
Mm.
with your family, with your friends. In the workplace, it's going to be with your teams, your colleagues, your clients. It's going to be with future partners, future customers. It's going to be at the way that you look at how you want to engage with people.
Hey, I'm Teen Zekas.
And hey, I'm Eilika Follett. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
Hello, welcome back to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. I am Teen Zekas, your pivot and pay strategist. My dear co-host, Eilika, was not able to join us today, but of course, I did not leave you hanging. We have a very special guest today. I am so excited for this conversation. So I would love to introduce you all to Miss Eileen Pippins. Eileen is the founder of Eileen Pippins Consulting, providing organizational development consulting, executive coaching, facilitation services, purposefully concentrated around supporting equity, inclusion, and belonging transformation solutions. A dynamic facilitator with over 15 years in workforce development, improvement, and engagement, Eileen has lent her talents to helping organizations build equity, develop impactful coalitions, equip leaders, and transform communities through mindful, intentional, participatory engagement. She's a certified diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, as well as a facilitator of radical collaboration training. She is also a dear, dear friend of mine, and I am so excited to welcome her today. So without further ado, Miss Eileen Pippins, welcome.
Hi, team. Thank you so much. And Eilika, thank you also for allowing me to come and be part of this amazing conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So, we are, as you know, all about getting Black women paid. And this is sort of a side note. Eileen is also my accountability buddy. So we actually meet weekly. we help each other set goals, stay on track, focus on, what we're trying to accomplish. And so I just on a personal note, I so appreciate your friendship and your support. So I wanted to open with that.
Mm.
And so let us know how we're going to be talking about getting Black women paid today. I mentioned in the bio that you are a facilitator for radical collaboration. What is that?
Radical collaboration is a methodology, a framework for approaching interest-based negotiations and interest-based problem solving. So you might say, okay, so what is that? Sorry. I'm overcoming some summer cold.
No worries.
Radical collaboration, it's called radical collaboration because it's a radical way of thinking about how to negotiate, how to engage in conversations, and how to build buy-in with people. So that could be with your family, with your friends. In the workplace, it's going to be with your teams, your colleagues, your clients. It's going to be with future partners, future customers. It's going to be at the way that you look at how you want to engage with people moving forward. It's building a culture of invitation and collaboration. So that's why it's called radical collaboration.
I love that. Well, and it sounds like it can touch every aspect of your life, right? Anything that you're doing that involves other people, right? But, specifically, I want to focus on the workplace, whether you are an employee or you are a business owner dealing with clients and other stakeholders. So I'm wondering, if you can give us sort of a basic run through, like what are the components of radical collaboration and how can we incorporate it into our work?
Yeah. So a little bit of background. This particular methodology came through. There's an actual book called Radical Collaboration. It was scripted by Jim Tam, one of my mentors, and Bill Schultz, may he rest in peace. And one of these, the essence of it is when you enter a room, what are the stories that you're bringing with you about the encounter you're about to have? So if you think about being in the workplace, I want you to take a moment, and I'm going to break down some of the elements.
Yeah.
I want you to take a moment and envision a work situation. It could be where you were, any work situation. I don't even want to give a clarifier. And this is a situation where you know that you have history with this person. There is a challenge in even approaching the conversation. So you're about to have this conversation with someone that you might have some contention with. Take a moment, get that situation in your mind. And I want you to give me 5 thoughts about how you're coming into that conversation. Give me 5.
Nervous. I'm anticipating pushback. I can already feel tense. I'm feeling defensiveness, and a lot of what ifs are playing through my mind. That was 4 maybe. And probably a script. I probably have some bullet points in my mind that I'm making sure I want to cover, so I don't miss anything. I don't get flustered and forget to say something important.
Okay. So we got anxiousness, defensiveness, some visceral feelings within the body, a script. Okay. So how do you think that person is coming into the conversation? Don't think about how it happened. Think about how you think they were entering the conversation.
How I think they were entering the conversation. I think they were pretty nonchalant. I think that this person does not know that we have tension, does not know that I feel some kind of way whenever I bring something up, and they respond however they respond. So I'm envisioning, thinking that they're coming into the situation not really considering the interpersonal aspects of it.
Okay, thank you. And what if you could replay that entire situation where you got to enter in the conversation, letting them know you were a little nervous, telling them that you have an agenda, that this is what you want to talk about, telling them why you might feel a little apprehension, but that you want them to be able to listen to you, and then asking them how are they entering the conversation. What do you think that would be like?
Ooh. I mean, for me, I think that would change the whole conversation, because even as I said, I was envisioning that they're not considering any of that stuff. And so I'm on the defense already coming into it thinking, well, they haven't thought about this and they don't know how it's going to impact me. But if I start by saying this is impacting me in these ways, and this is what I'm nervous about, and asking how they're coming into it, yeah, that would set a really different tone. Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that with me, and thank you for trusting me in that little guided example for all of your listeners to hear that experience. Because radical collaboration is more than just conflict management. It's about changing the way that we're engaging with people. I remember I saw one time before I took the radical collaboration training, and I'll tell you why. Also, I added an extension to it because of something that I add to the mix, my secret sauce. But there was a master class for somebody who was an FBI hostage negotiator, and he said, "I'm going to teach you how to negotiate with anybody at any time." And my challenge with that is every encounter is not a hostage negotiation.
Right.
When you want to take time off for your job, that's not a hostage negotiation. When you want to ask for a raise, or when you want to have the conversation about why you deserve an increase in compensation on any level, like more PTO, more money, more flex in the way that you work with your organization, even as an entrepreneur, how you get to have conversations with your clients about fee increases. It
Yeah.
is not a hostage negotiation. It
Right.
is an invitation to come in and say, hey, here are some needs that I have, and I want to bring you along. So let me share with you what my interests are, and I want to learn what your interests are. And
Mm.
so radical collaboration is really powerful because in in Western culture, specifically when we think about business, we think about how traditionally we've been trained from a patriarchal white supremacist framework
Yep.
that it has to be thumb on your neck from up
Mm.
high in order to achieve something, where that's not how it should be and that's not how it has to be. That's the radical piece. It's
Mm.
having people take a moment to see, what if I can have this conversation with a boss that I'm not really close to? What
Right.
if I shared with my employees or with my subordinates that I want them to step up, that I want them to ask questions when they need to, but I want them to justify their decision making because that's why they're paid. They're not just paid for their subject matter expertise, they're
Mm.
paid for their critical thinking. So
Mm.
what if we embrace that as that we the people we're engaging with want that from us? That's radical collaboration. So it's about
Wow.
self-awareness first, about our defensiveness, about openness, about three essential needs that we have when we think about our how we're being judged by other people. And then it's about how we get to set the tone for the way we come into communications,
Oh my
setting the climate.
goodness. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So a couple of things about what you said just stood out to me. So we had a episode way back, I think it was maybe our second or third episode about negotiations for salary, for compensation. And one of the things we talked about was sort of being on a team, right? It's not me versus them, but how can we work together to get the best possible scenario? And I think that marries so well with what you're talking about. And it sounds like this framework also can help kind of put you at ease going into those conversations,
Mhm.
um, because you are working towards a common goal. And
Absolutely.
the other thing that that really stood out to me was the sort of the examples that you gave of the different scenarios where this can come up, right? That we've had so many of these conversations about, hey, can I work from home one more day a week because I have this appointment, or can I have some flexibility in things? And the way that we approach those conversations can be so stressful, especially when we come in with the stories we're telling about, well, they're going to say this, they're not going to do that, they don't think this of me, or whatever it is. That those stories we tell about ourselves, about the other person or about the other party, may or may not be true, but you're inviting us to ask, to be open and say, hey, here's where I'm coming from, I want to know where you're coming from. I think that's that sounds so valuable. And so I'm excited to hear more and figure out how I can put this into practice for myself as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's encouraging to hear that you're encouraged by the possibility of seeing how to enter into these conversations. I call them conversations, but every conversation can be a negotiation. It could be from, excuse me. Well, let me back up a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about two scenarios,
Okay.
and then I'll explain some of the elements. I feel like I'm a little all over the place because we're having this amazing conversation. So whatever
Yeah.
pops. When you think about in the workplace and you think about conflict, let's define conflict first. Like you said in that scenario, um, you can't have conflict if the other person doesn't know about it.
Oh
And
my gosh, I have to interrupt you because that is that's just so much of my life, right? Like we're beefing, but they don't even they don't even
they
have
have
any
no
idea.
clue. They have no clue. That's why when you walk into the space, you're like, oh, I'm feeling some kind of way because of how you talked to me or how you responded to that email or what you didn't do for me or how you lied to
Mhm.
me. But they don't know you know.
Right.
So
So
there's that.
can you say that one more time? You can't have conflict. What
You
was
can't
it?
have there's no conflict if the other person doesn't know that there's a conflict.
Mm.
So I'm gonna break down the definition of conflict. Conflict, interpersonal conflict, is when you have at least two people, so it has to be more than the other two people living in our heads, me, myself, and I. That's intrapersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict is when there's at least one other person, and there's this expressed. So you have to, they have to know about it, express it some kind of way. It could be a nonverbal roll of the eyes, and they know that there's something wrong, right? There has to be some type of indicator for the other person, right? You can't play tennis, badminton, or ping pong by yourself. It
Well,
has to be
and
somebody else there.
they have to have received that message too, because I'm thinking about, for instance, neurodivergence, right? Like my facial expression may not indicate to you what I'm feeling if you're not interpreting it on the other side. So um, it has to be expressed and received.
Yes, yes, and we can talk a little bit more about that too when I get into one of the other elements of radical collaboration. So first, you have to have that it's expressed, and it's usually around a perceived opposition from the other person of goals, needs, values, um, goals, needs, values, uh, or resources. So
Mm.
basically, I feel like you're stopping me from reaching a goal.
Mhm.
And that person, here's the kicker, the message they receive is, oh, well, I perceive that you're interfering with my values. But at least there, it doesn't have to be like we're both on the same source of conflict, but it does have to be that you know that I have an issue or there's a disruption in you're disrupting my access to those things.
Sure.
So that's what conflict is. That can be as simple, or I'm not going to even say simple, because we know in long-term employment, or even long-term, if you're a business owner, long-term client relationships,
Mhm.
if you understand that somebody has a communication need, um, somebody that's neurodivergent, even, and I'm gonna say this, I'm not neurodivergent, but I don't use all my words. I don't,
Right.
all the words that are in my head do not always come out. And but I am very expressive non-verbally. But if I'm dealing with someone who is neurodivergent and it's not my responsibility to know, I don't have to know that they are. I want to be clear though, that person, I need to make sure that they understand or have heard me say something or express
Right.
something, communicate something.
Right. I can't say, well, I raised an eyebrow, so they know something's up. Like you need to
Right.
say, you need to say it.
Yeah. You got to say it some kind of way. Use your words, use your email. Because that eyebrow could be, that's an idea pop for me. But
Right.
anyway, let's stick with that. So now we have our definition of conflict. If you have a team that you're working with and you're supposed to be working on a project, everybody's performance to get that project right, that's part of a KPI. We got to get this project done. People are moving at different paces and people have different goals. The end goal that we're all working on is to complete the project. However, what's going to make you work better? Not necessarily faster, not necessarily stronger, but what's going to make you work better so the team looks better? And that's for everybody on the team. If you and I are working on a team, I need to communicate with you what I'm perceiving, but also what I may need from you.
Right.
Everybody has a different work ethic, everybody processes different, and everybody has a different role on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about because I should have wrote down what I was going to talk about next, but that first knowing that there's this conflict, and I'm going to talk about 3 different zones of how we enter into communication, how you get to enter into communication with people. We call it the red zone, the green zone, and the pink zone.
Okay, we got red, green, and pink. I'm ready.
Red, green, and pink. So in the scenario that I gave you, think about the red zone as that's our fight zone. That's when I already know how they are. I know that they have favorites. My boss, brushes me off, or I like to stay under the radar, so I don't even know my boss like that. And now I want to ask them something, so I'm afraid to ask them. The red zone is fear-based, and it's where our highest defensiveness is. It's where we
Sure.
might talk with a combative tone. I'm trying to win because I want this time off or I want the raise. But I'm not thinking about anything long term. It's just about my individual needs. So think about, there are different levels of hostility that might come in, or we might either we feel attacked, we go into the situation feeling attacked and nothing's happened yet, or we're going in to attack the other person because we want to control the outcome. That's the red zone.
Okay. Yeah.
The green zone is when I don't have anything to lose. I'm going in trusting, I'm going in being authentic. Can you hear anything outside this window?
No, you're good. I think it does a good job of kind of
Okay.
blocking
Sorry,
that stuff out.
everybody. I
You're
am in
good.
Northern California, and today we have actually a clear day, and so I'm loving the fresh air. I should have
Love it.
closed the window, but anyway, okay,
You're
they
good.
stopped. Heard me. But the green zone is when it's more collaborative. It's more, we're going into it being with a cooperative tone. We're looking at mutual gain. We're more open. We feel like there's the possibility of problem solving and togetherness. We enter in thinking off the top that this person is going to want to hear from us and that we'll be open to hearing from them. That's the green zone.
Okay.
The pink zone is where a lot of us, and I have my moments too, but it's where a lot of us reside because that's where the hidden agendas are. That is also fear-based, but we're also protective. So I'm going to share some things with you, but not everything. It's when we want to avoid losing. It's when, think about when you're trying to be conflict avoidant, where you don't give up all the information. You're not sharing what your full truth is. When it feels like, sometimes it can feel like guerrilla warfare, like we're being covert. I love asking people, how do you feel when you think somebody has a hidden agenda when they're talking to you? And I'll ask them, well, tell me about that. And then I ask them, okay, so what's your hidden agenda?
Yeah.
And it's like people clutch their pearls, men and
Right.
women.
I would never have a hidden agenda.
And I'll say, but that person doesn't know how you feel. That person, you missed an opportunity to share with them and stop them in the moment to address an issue. My mother used to have this saying when she would chastise us in public. You get it where you give it. So if you show out in a meeting, if you cut me off in a meeting, I'm not going to wait till later to address it. We're going to address it now.
Right. You did it in front of everybody. We can address it in front of everybody.
That part. And oftentimes what happens is where radical collaboration comes in is it allows the opportunity to say, this person, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you're not even self-aware that you keep cutting me off.
Right.
Maybe you do that to everybody, but I'm feeling it because it's happening to me. And I just want to do a check-in so I can disrupt it. That is collaborative because we're all part of this moment.
Yeah.
And so in order for the moment to move forward, I need to address something. So those, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What would that look like? So you're in a meeting, you're talking, someone keeps interrupting you. What would you say that is not in that red zone, that is not attacking, but is, hey, I'm going to let you know.
So it's starting with trying to feel curious. So I take breaths because I don't want to revert to my red zone. And I know we're going to have to keep working together.
Right.
So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. As a facilitator, I get to do this all the time. I step back to become curious. I say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I wouldn't laugh. If I laugh, that's nervous laughter. And so that for me, it's nervous laughter is more sarcasm because I'm trying to withhold my agitation. But what I would say is, I'm sorry, can we pause a moment? Teen, um, I noticed that I noticed that you're cutting me off. Is there a reason that's happening? Because it keeps happening. And then
Mm.
you pause. You don't offer information. Is it because you're mad at me? Is it because of
Right. You're not
let
accusing me of anything,
yeah, I'm
but you're
asking.
letting me know you noticed this thing and then offering me a moment to think about why I'm doing that thing.
Mhm.
Mm.
Because sometimes people aren't aware. Sometimes that's their MO.
Right.
Sometimes people do things because they know they're used to, they don't know, but they're used to no one checking them on it.
Right.
And so if you pause for a moment, let's say a big one for getting Black women paid. If you're an employee, I'm going to talk about employees and contractors. If you're an employee, you're coming up on your annual review or you're coming up on your probationary period.
Mm-hmm.
A way to approach your merit increase uh, and to secure your spot is to be able to set some weekly goals. I used to have every Friday, I would send a little note to my boss and I would say, oh my goodness, this week was so incredible. And I would just spotlight 3 highlights in a short email.
Mm.
And it was habit forming. So at the end of my first 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
they had a record of things because when we come in to meet, I'm assuming that you were reading everything, that you remember. That's a way to help you remember. So when you come in and you're trying to just do the checklist of met expected or exceed expected, I have an opportunity to help you remember in a collaborative way
Mm-hmm.
because you're also managing all of these other things. So this is my way of saying, oh, remember I just sent you this, and remember there are some highlights, and I'm coming in with the expectation that you want me to get exceeds expected.
Right. Right.
Oftentimes managers who aren't strong leaders are coming in just on autopilot to say, traditionally nobody their first 6 months gets exceeds expected. And I'm like, well, but let's take a look at this.
Right. Right. Mm. I love that.
So you notice that my tone is oh, I'm not combative. Anytime somebody says usually, I'm like, oh, okay, that means there's a percentage of people that does get it. So hey, let's take a look here.
Right.
Let's take a look. And
About how my work has been exceptional
yeah,
and I'm not usual. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
unusual.
I wonder if we can talk about the pink zone a little bit, because when you mentioned kind of keeping things close to the vest, not sharing everything, a lot of my clients came to mind. A lot of Black women I work with will say, "Well, I don't do friendships at work. I'm not trying to share about my personal life. I'm not trying to tell them everything." But then it's not even just personal stuff. It's, "Well, I don't want to tell them even what my career goals are because they might try to sabotage this." Like there's um a lot of walls, a lot of shielding ourselves from the things we've experienced in the past, right? This doesn't come from nowhere. This comes from decades of, maybe someone was trying to sabotage you in your previous role, or someone was taking advantage when you would share your ideas and then they were taking them as their own. How do you talk with someone who feels that who's putting up that armor and who feels really justified in it?
So that's an excellent question. The pink and the red zone it's a very thin line between the pink and the red zone.
Sure.
But the further you go into the red zone, like for someone who wants to say, I don't need no new friends. I have all the friends I have. My question to them would be, what kind of work environment do you want to be in?
Mm,
Because some of that stuff comes from culture, some of it comes from family, some of it comes from previous work trauma. I've been there.
correct.
And so if you focus on, I'm in this new position, um, what do I want my workplace to be like? that means you also have an opportunity to ask them questions because I'm also a leadership and growth mindset coach. I ask the questions, tell me about your workplace and what you want your workplace to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they describe it, I ask them, so what are you doing to contribute to that? How are
Mm.
you being in that? Because oftentimes we look at these images of, I don't need any new friends. Well, I don't need any new friends because I watched a lot of backstabbing people, you know, um, rumor mill stuff, catty
Sure.
stuff happen in a previous workplace. So then I don't want to be involved in that. Or I don't, I got to understand how to play politics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what if you were like Swaziland? What if you were neutral?
Mm.
So you can be in a lot of different places. That's green zone. That's shifting out. Oftentimes, people who are passive aggressive because of past experience or because of the story. Remember, this is the other thing I wanted to say about conflict. I knew there was something simple. Um, Conflict is about storytelling.
Mm.
It's what is the story that I'm saying about this conflict I have with this person. So if I talk about I don't need any new friends, I don't want to get close to people at work, what's the story that you're telling? You're
Right.
going into these encounters with people at your workplace not wanting to be close to them, not wanting them to know you, not wanting to know what's important to them. Everybody doesn't have to know everything, but people like people that they know, like, and trust.
Mm.
So if you're in a workplace, even if you have somebody that's on your team and you have different work styles, maybe I can find out about from them uh, what's their thinking like. How do you process?
Mm.
Even if you're an introvert. So I'm an extrovert, so I'm floating between people. I'm super curious because I'm drawing that energy.
Sure.
For introverts, it would be okay, so how can I learn about people in my workplace and how can I let them learn a little bit more about me so I feel a sense of belonging?
Mm.
Because when you don't want no new friends and when you don't need no new friends, when you don't need people to know about your personal life, that means that you're coming in guarded, you're coming in with a red zone.
Yeah.
And it makes your encounters when you're trying to negotiate more money, when you want to institute a new project, when you're even if you're I love talking about the succession planning. So if you plan on
Yeah.
advancing in the organization, how are you showing your leadership by bringing somebody on who can help take your place and help keep the momentum of the organization going based on where you are
Right.
versus where you're going?
Right.
So those are the questions that I would ask and
Oh,
how I'd
I love that you addressed succession planning because it goes back to an episode we had about gatekeeping, about Black women gatekeepers who are saying, well, there's only room for one of us at the top, so I gotta, you know, defend my space, as opposed to why don't I build this person up so that when I advance, they can come in behind me, right? Another thing I want to highlight that you said was the know, like, and trust factor, because some of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs get that messaging about, people will buy from you when they know, like, and trust you. The part of your marketing is establishing that know, trust, and like factor. But I think that a lot of folks who are in careers outside of entrepreneurship are not necessarily hearing that phrase as well. And so I wanted to highlight that for all of our viewers and listeners, that building relationships, that getting people to know, like, and trust you is how you gain um, that what's the word I'm looking for, that currency with people, right?
Mhm.
If they know, like, and trust you, then they will do for you.
Let's talk about the red zone, green zone, pink zone when it comes to entrepreneurs and sales before we even get
Yes.
into marketing. With our clients, if you're saying you're having a conversation with a client about your price,
Mm.
if you come at it with, I know my worth, this is my price and that's all, then you're cutting off an opportunity to see not only your worth is your worth. You got to know your worth. That's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to negotiate a contract, you want to make sure that you're understanding what are your interests in it, but also what are their interests. So it can become this partnership. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we look at, like, for entrepreneurs, if you're looking at requests for proposals and they have their itineraries and their agendas there, a red zone approach is to say, I'm going to just do the minimum. I don't appreciate some of the questions or the criteria, and I'm not going to apply for it at all. That's a red zone.
Mm-hmm.
A green zone approach says, let me look at this. How can I add my secret sauce in a highlighted way? In an RFP, it's kind of tricky. I don't ever give everything away in an RFP because then they have my blueprint. I
Right.
give them highlights that meets the criteria, but also I'm highlighting who I am. I'm filling out the proposal in a way that lets them hear my voice until we have an opportunity to talk.
Right.
The pink zone, really quickly, is when we're saying, like, let's say you're negotiating with someone on an RFP and they have a lower hourly rate than you have. I tend to have project prices, or I have half day rates, full day rates. But in an RFP, it's set up to try and create some equity amongst bidders. Well, a pink zone says, I don't know if I can even ask the question. So I have this hidden agenda about how I fill it out. So with entrepreneurs, when you're thinking about, let's say, sometimes I get people who say, well, what's your hourly rate? My hourly consulting rate is different than my project rate. So I have to have a conversation more with you. It's not as simple as just give me your hourly. My hourly rate for what? For coaching, for consulting,
Right.
for facilitation, for what are your needs? So I go into it with a green zone. And for entrepreneurs, when you have a fee increase, because yesterday's price is not today's price.
Mm-hmm.
So, but how can I see if there's something I can do for you? It may not be, you may not get, you'll always get a white glove special with me, but a white glove touch, but you may not get everything. You may only get an appetizer.
Right. Well, and I loved a couple of things about what you said. One was, this isn't about being naive, right? You still don't give your entire framework, your entire everything in this RFP because we don't have a contract yet. I'm not just going to pour all of my intellectual property into the ether and hope everything goes well, right? This isn't about being naive when you're approaching things from the green zone. It doesn't mean you're sharing everything to everybody, right? But that you're being intentional about, how can I highlight what I do within what they are saying their needs are, and how do we find that balance? The other thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about, sales calls and setting your rates is, there is the red zone you can come into. Well, this is my price and, take it or leave it. But there's also a red zone on the other end of things where you're coming into it telling yourself the story, my price is too high, this person's not going to be able to afford it, right? In either case, you're telling yourself a story and you're coming at it with, negative emotions that are not necessarily about, well, let me actually find out what their needs are. And let me actually find out what their situation is, because maybe this can be a good fit.
Yeah, totally. With radical collaboration, so interest-based problem solving and interest-based negotiations. Oh, I have a great story for this. When you're doing interest-based problem solving, you are looking at, what are my interests in solving this problem. If it's an overhead issue, if it's, do I have this meeting? Do I go to this conference? Do I invest in something? The story, because it's all storytelling. The story I get to tell myself is, let me explore, what are my options? What are my interests? And then what's my contingency plan? Because that's all I can control when we're talking about interest-based decision making.
Right.
Interest-based negotiations is about the same thing. However, I'm now going to try and guess the interests of the other party.
Mm.
So what are the interests of if I'm trying to negotiate with my boss, and our department is facing, I wish I could have been involved in some of the strategic thinking with some of these organizations like Microsoft and John
Mhm.
Deere. They eliminated their DEI divisions.
Right.
I would have I would have loved to have supported them in navigating, doing some interest-based problem solving because the work is still the work. You can't, the
Yeah.
foundation of this republic is based on racism. So how and the incendiary division of people because we tend to go with people that look like us, think like us.
Right.
So
That affinity bias. Yeah.
that affinity bias. So why don't we talk about if we had a DEI division, just because in certain states you're not supposed to have it anymore does not eliminate the work. So why don't we look at what are our interests and how can we still do this work and think about how do we change the name because the work is still the work.
Right.
And so even as an employee or a contractor, you have the opportunity to help support them in pulling that out.
Mm. Mm. Oh my goodness. Eileen, I could talk to you for hours about this. And I know I have just in this short time, I've learned so much, but I do want to make sure that for our listeners and for folks who are watching on YouTube, can you share with us, how people can get in touch with you if anyone wants to follow you or learn more or, take part in that radical collaboration training? How can people reach you?
Yes, excellent. Thank you. Well, first, let me talk about radical collaboration. I call it it's the collaboration breakthrough. And in this 3-day training, there's one coming up in Oakland, California, October 28th through the 30th. It is
Okay.
an amazing 3-day training. If you want to level up your team development, if you want to build your confidence, if you want to shift the culture in your organizations
Mm.
around how people communicate and also how you invite this breadth of expansion to be able to scale to have these conversations, come join us. There'll be a link that Teen will share with you. I'm also offering a discount for listeners. That'll be in the link as well.
Hold on. Okay, let me you were about to keep talking, but I just wanna okay, thank you. So, okay, Miss Eileen Pippins is offering us a discount to this 3-day training all about radical collaboration, the collaboration breakthrough. If you got something from just this last, 30, 40 minutes with Eileen, please take advantage of this incredible gift. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought you were just going to breeze by that. So
Oh,
this is a huge opportunity for our listeners. So I wanted to highlight that and thank you.
yeah, yeah. I'm all about if we as Black women want to keep getting paid, we need to develop and power up our self-awareness and our
Mhm.
collaboration skills, and our micro practices and strategies for being able to um, walk through this life, through our
Mm.
work, through our jobs, through our purpose, knowing that we're developing relationships that's going to tell a different story about our success, our impact, and our
Mm.
achievement.
Absolutely.
Um, so that's the radical collaboration training. You can also look me up at EileenPippinsConsulting.com. My Instagram got hacked and disabled, so I'm
Oh no.
working with a team. Boy, I tell you, Instagram now is so savvy that once they've tagged you as being, that's another whole nother thing, tagged you as being disabled, it
Mm.
recognizes all my devices, so I
Oh,
can't even
you can't
open up
get
a new
into it from
account.
anywhere. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't. I gotta buy a new one or go to the library or something. But
Okay,
also
so
you can reach me at info@eileenpippinsconsulting.com. You can email me there, and there's also a contact link on my website. Team, thank you so much, you and I, for this amazing platform to keep inspiring and encouraging Black women to think about how we show up, how we are worthy, how what we navigate is not all in our minds, but it is in our experience and in our DNA. And I just love you, girl. I just love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much. And of course, we will put those links and your email, your contact information in the description of this episode. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Wait, okay, what's up?
The last thing is also I have my YouTube channel. It's currently under construction, but there isn't a video. There's 2 videos there. Morning Cup of Convo.
Morning Cup of Convo. Yes.
Cup of Convo.
Okay, we'll put that in the description as well. Absolutely. So if you want to stay in touch with Eileen and keep up to date on these kinds of discussions, definitely get to her website, get to the YouTube channel, and and we again thank you so much for sharing with us today. And that is where we are going to leave it. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube or who are listening on a podcast, thank you again. Please be sure to share this podcast with the other incredible Black women in your lives so we can continue getting Black women paid. Thanks again, Eileen. All right, we'll see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can catch more episodes like this one.
And join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Be sure to share this channel with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.